Hello and welcome to The Natural View. I'm Maggie Jacqua and I have a special guest here with me today. Our guest is Josh Baisley. He is the new head of SGS Nutrasource. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. We had a little bit earlier coverage in our June 2026 print issue and digital issue of WholeFoods Magazine, where we put a spotlight on several leaders of the natural products industry, and you were among them. So I encourage anybody who didn't see that article to check that out on WholeFoodsMagazine.com, and you can read more about Josh's work in the industry. And today we're going to talk and take a little bit of a deeper dive. So I want to start with, I think it's very cool. You have a lot of longevity with the company. You've been with them more than a decade and you've spanned multiple roles. And now you're in the head role. So I'm wondering if you can just kind of look back over those years and talk about any leadership lessons that you've learned and that have really had an impact on your career development.
I'm sure. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the course of my career is patience. I'm somebody who likes to get things done. I see a gap, I want to fill it, I want to plug it, move on, which is a great thing to do, of course, and that is how I've operated. But sometimes you want things to move a lot faster. And understanding there's multiple priorities. Now in the position that I am, I see that. So understanding behind the scenes, there's often many priorities and which one is more important for the business. Everyone feels an urgency to what they need to get done, but there's often competing interests. So I think that's a big takeaway for me. And I learned that over time. It was actually my manager that actually was coaching me on that before I got into this role, to understand that while you want to move so fast, there are other things and often other priorities for the business as a whole that, will get there. It will happen, but maybe just not the pace that you want it to.
Yeah, that is great advice to take to heart, definitely. I also want to touch on one of the themes that stood out in your leadership spotlight was your belief that leaders are developed by putting them in situations where the outcomes matter. So, kind of giving them that responsibility and then letting them, work it out. Can you expand on that philosophy and maybe even some examples of how you've seen somebody grow and maybe they didn't think they were ready for it and then they discovered, kind of a new talent and a new confidence?
Yes, there's definitely times where you want people to really try, struggle in a way too, because that's what builds the character. It's not about getting it right all the time. The biggest lessons often come out of mistakes that we make. And for me as a leader, I want people to try. I'm okay with them failing. It's being sure, of course, that failure is not something that we can't course correct from. If it's something that's incredibly important or that could be more, we'll call it disastrous for lack of a better term, of course, that's something that you want to be alongside of that, help make those decisions, coach them. But for minor things, little things, you've got to give that autonomy. People need to be able to make decisions on their own, or they won't develop those skills to make decisions on their own. They'll always wait for that person to make it for them. And that's something, even as I've transitioned to this role, pulling out of the operations and getting more into that leadership position, I have to step back. I have to let people make those decisions. And yes, they come to me and they want that decision made. And sometimes I just step back and wait, and they have to make the decision. They don't have a choice. They've got to get an answer out, and he's not available. I've got to make the call. I've got to make the decision. So that's some of the ways I do put them in those positions. Other times people aren't ready, and you can see that. And then that's where coaching is important. Say, okay, here's what you're doing really, really well. Here's where you need to develop in order to get into the next position, the next role, and then giving them opportunities to develop those skills to get them to that position. I had someone actually who's joined into my leadership team now where that was exactly the case. Wasn't ready, could see that person wasn't ready. They thought they were, but they didn't see all the challenges and the decisions that were going to have to be made in that next step. So really allowing them to grow, develop into that. Took about a 2-year period of coaching, mentoring, and having different people give different mentorship and different skills until that person was ready, and then move them in. Again, not fully ready for the position. No one ever is. You never know what you're getting into. But did a great job once she moved into that position.
And that goes back to what you were talking about too with the patience, knowing like it doesn't have to be right now, but building those tools and then really trusting the process that you've put in the work and now you're ready to see where it goes. And I think, I've worked with your team at Nutrasource for many years, and I really it's just such an excellent team with so much collaboration. So you see that trust and community, with everybody working together, but in their own lanes in a really great way. So I think the company culture clearly is successful. I wanted to talk a little bit about balancing some of the things that are going on at the company. So you have the scientific rigor, regulatory expectations, business realities, commercial goals. How do you help your team navigate all of those things, balance those things without losing sight of kind of the big picture for the company?
Um, Quite a few things have to happen to for that to kind of all align. Of course, changes in regulation, everything's moving towards modernization, risk-based thinking. That is big in clinical research. That's been coming in over time, and has kind of been the culture of how clinical has been developing. So that is actually something we hired a lot of people in from the pharmaceutical industry, and moving them into the nutraceutical industry is easier than having, if we get a project that's more on the pharma side, because we do Nutra and pharma, it's easier to bring people from the pharmaceutical industry, coach them down rather than coaching up a nutraceutical into pharma. So that's where risk base really came into play for us. And this goes back a number of years, probably about 10 years, getting into that mentality of, well, this is less risky of a product. So therefore, we don't need to do X, Y, Z. And a lot of that coaching and training went on in clinical. Then, because that's really half of the business, kind of pushes out as a culture across the business. I think that makes it quite easy because it became more of a cultural thing to have this kind of risk-based thinking. Um, and then as far as, keeping everybody aligned strategically, what is the goal of the company? We do have quarterly meetings with the entire company, monthly management meetings with all the leaders in the company to keep that alignment. Of course, I've also attended senior leadership meetings with SGS. So again, top-down messaging, getting it right down to the bottom so everybody stays aligned. What do we need to do as a business? And end of the day, our business is because of our clients. It's our customers. So being in touch with our customers, talking to them, getting insights from them. Where are you moving to? What do you need from us? We're a service provider. So we're only as good with our services as what our clients need from us. So staying in touch with them and keeping a pulse on our customers is key to success for us as a business and achieving our business goals.
Excellent. I want to talk a little bit about the customers. On the brand side, the supplement industry is kind of facing evolving regulatory challenges, increased scrutiny with the retailers coming in with their parameters. You have regulatory changing, healthcare practitioners, and of course, consumers themselves are more tuned in than probably ever before. So, in your view, what is going to separate the companies that will thrive in this environment and evolving environment over the next decade from those that struggle? And along with that, how are you guys helping those companies that are going to thrive?
A big part of that is consumer confidence. Consumer confidence is coming from the science. Regulatory confidence, again, science based. So really, those companies that are putting the scientific rigor in, doing the research, whether it's clinical or backing up and getting into mechanism of action and really understanding their products, that science is what's really driving the innovation and the confidence, both from the consumer side as well as from regulators. Now, for what we do in that space, of course, is really everything. We are doing the testing, we're doing the preclinical models, the clinical models, and then all the way through to the brand. Then it's certification marks, again, third-party testing to prove the quality of that product when it comes to market. So we really do fit all along that value chain from ingredient manufacturing right through to the branded product of at the back end.
And I think one of the things you said in the article that I was talking about in the June issue is that the future of the industry will be defined by credibility. And that's what you've all said there is kind of that's what credibility, that's what it takes and what we need to be doing as an industry. So appreciate the work you're doing there. I wanted to ask you about the long-standing relationships that SGS Nutrasource has with organizations across several natural products communities. We're looking at biotics, botanicals, omega-3s, animal health, which is seems to me to really be an emerging space in the natural products community. Can you talk about how important industry engagement and collaboration is with, those other organizations, to kind of really help build and how that plays into your leadership?
Sure. So it's extremely important. And again, when I talk customers, I mean, I really should say stakeholders. End of the day, it's alignment with the regulators. We have good relationships with the FDA, with Health Canada, and others. We have the relationships we've built with our customers. We have relationships with the trade organizations. As a service provider, as I mentioned, it's about what do our customers need? What do regulators need? And we need to be building the support for these companies in that manner so that they're able to execute, deliver, and come to market with confidence. Being part of trade associations is a big part of that. They're shaping the industry. They're the voice for everybody as we move towards tighter regulations. What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? We each have individual voices, but that's where these trade associations can bring that voice collectively together to drive it forward. So being at the table of those is always important for us. That's why you'll see us in pretty much all the trade organizations and have a seat at the table, often on many of the boards of those or in the working groups and the committees.
Yeah, there's so much going on the advocacy front with the various trade groups. And we're reporting on it all the time, and it's so important to have your voice be part of that collective and take part in what they're all doing on our behalf. So I support that, of course, wholeheartedly. Um, I wanted to talk about just kind of take a look ahead at the future. What is exciting to you about, what's going on at the company or any trends you see in the industry, opportunities in the industry that people should be paying attention to? Like, what can you kind of give us a little insight on for the future?
So what I see coming in the future, I quite a number of things actually. Right now, of course, clinical, we often see what's happening. What are the hot areas? Longevity, of course, everybody's seeing that. The GLP-1s, but what's coming next? What happens when a large portion of the population are on GLP-1s? Right? What does that do to science? We often have to study, we'll call them healthy participants, but what happens when healthy people are taking GLP-1s now? It changes the metabolism. How is that going to affect these products? Will they metabolize the same way? Will they have the same effects? I think there's going to be more questions being raised on interactions between medications and supplements. That's something we haven't really dove into yet as an industry. And this is evolution. I started in the industry 22 years ago, I think it was. There wasn't a lot of science out there. There was some, but not a lot. It's evolved over time, right? All these ingredients are science backed now. There's more understanding of mechanism of action. So this is just the evolution of the industry. What are the next hurdles that we now need to be researching and overcoming? As far as what else is coming, I think modernization to regulation at some point, it's got to happen. Our regulations in many countries are quite outdated. Technologies and biotechnology is advancing at a pace that's just going faster and faster now. Regulations are not there to actually support some of the ways even the natural ingredients are being manufactured now. So this needs to change, or we now have non-compliant products coming to market, and no fault of the industry. I mean, it's driven by, revenues. We need to make things faster. We need to make things cheaper. How do we do that? you get innovative. Well, you get innovative, now you're stepping out of regulation. Um, and that's again only because regulation is quite old, to be quite honest, and hasn't kept up. So I see that as another shift that I hope is coming, but as we know, regulators are quite slow. But is there leniency in looking at, again, more risk-based, as we see regulators are also trying to grapple that now and move to more of a risk-based process. What else I see for us is more innovation. You'll see more innovation coming from SGS as a whole. We, of course, have now being part of SGS, have a lot more tools and resources for us, as well as access to things that we didn't offer as Nutrasource. So inspections, certifications of facilities, being able to offer additional testing that we weren't able to before. So for us, I see quite a bit of growth, as well as, some things can't really get into, but things on my radar that we're looking to add into our service portfolio as we continue to grow and expand.
All right. So you talked about 22 years in the industry, so a lot of longevity there. And I'm wondering if you can share some seeds of wisdom that you've picked up over the years. What advice would you give to somebody who is entering the industry today? Obviously, it's a lot different today than it was 22 years ago. But what would you give advice to someone who hopes to, shift into a leadership role, grow with the industry, and 22 years from now be one of our spotlight leaders?
My advice would be do what you love to do. I landed in this position actually quite by not position, but into the industry actually completely by chance. This was not on my radar of what I would be doing in life, but once I got into it, I absolutely loved it. So I've never not loved the job I'm doing. And so I think that's very important because it keeps it fun. It's challenging, it's fun. Of course, you're going to have hard days. Everybody has hard days. You get through that. That's just part of the challenges. And if you're having a hard day or it's difficult, you're growing. That's stretching you. You're going to learn from that. So it's just part of that evolution of getting to the other end. So I would say that's one of the biggest things I would say. Just make sure that what you're doing, you do love to do. You have a passion for it. Own it is another one. Everyone should feel ownership of the company. Treat it as your own, and you'll make it your own. So that would be another lesson I would say. And another one too that I hear it a lot. People often get quite hung up on titles. I never did. I didn't care about a title. What I do and what I have in my experience speaks more than a title ever will. So don't let that hold you back. A title is just that. I mean, you get in this industry and you look across the industry and you've got, so many variations on a title. It means different things in different companies. It doesn't mean the same thing. So why get hung up on that? So that's another piece of advice that I would give people too. Don't let that ever hold you back. Do the job, grow, and also pitch in, right? If you see something that needs to get it done. Don't be afraid. Of course, you don't want to steamroll people and push into things that you shouldn't be in. But there's ways to do it and be helpful and be able to, again, address things before they're problems. And that goes a long way too. And in building your reputation as you grow in your career and into leadership.
Excellent. That's all great advice. I wanted to get some more advice for you. So, as we've talked about, the company emphasizes mentorship, professional development. You really are creating these opportunities where employees can grow. So, for other leaders or, emerging leaders who are watching this, who want to build stronger teams and develop future leaders within their organizations, what advice would you have for them?
One thing that we've done very well here at Nutrasource, you mentioned collaboration before. It's very important. Teamwork, allowing people to work together. But then one thing that we did on top of that was create a mentorship program internally. So it's open to all employees. Anyone can be a mentor, anybody can be a mentee. And each year, beginning of the year, the names come in. Who do you want to mentor with? And what do you want to get out of that? You may or may not get that mentor, but as leadership, we will look and say, this person would pair better with this person and could get that same mentorship experience. Um, Again, sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's on career development. So giving those opportunities to everyone to have that ability to learn from others, and it also creates cross training opportunities. We see people in our clinical group want to learn regulatory wants to learn certifications. And that again builds that collaborative culture within our group. So I think that's important, and it's something that is easily done. It doesn't cost anything. It costs a bit of time of your employees, but you're going to get a lot out of it as a business.
Yeah, great payoff of that. And I think it really goes both ways too. Like as when you're mentoring, you're learning and the opportunities if you stay open to hearing the other person. I learn a lot from the younger people on staff who come in with fresh ideas or more knowledge of certain digital this or that and programs that are out there, and just being open to all of that and always kind of learning and growing is the way to be. So I wanted to ask before we wrap up, and this is a little bit of a reflection, kind of a deep dive into your thoughts. But when people look back on your leadership years from now, what do you hope that your legacy will be for the company and for the industry overall?
Wow. I would say, and I think I do this, and I would hope that this is seen, is that I lead with integrity. I like to be transparent. I like people to, what you see is what you get. And I want to always remember to put people first. We have a business to run, but there's people at the heart of the business. We're only as good as the people that we have. So I would say that's kind of what I want to see as a legacy, that I have built and maintained a good culture, a collaborative culture that is led with integrity. As far as what I leave behind personally, again, I think expanding that out even within my life is just, again, sharing that knowledge and that passion I have for the industry. Um, the people around me know what I do. It's not everybody knows how much science goes into the products that are on the shelf, but I think the people around me now can actually embrace that and understand that, what we are doing is for the betterment of people.
Excellent. I mean, you guys really do have a team of like rock stars. So it's going in the right direction over there for sure. I'm always impressed when I work with anyone on your team. So any final takeaways you want to leave us with?
I think just what you mentioned there, working with rock stars, that's very important. We hire, I wouldn't say we go out there looking for the best. We hire for attitudes, people who have a passion for this, a passion for the role, and that have a personality that we know will fit in the culture that we've built here. And I think that's been very important. And of that, skills can be trained. So that's a way I think that we've really built a good culture here. Again, through opportunities internally, they get the training, they get the support, they get the ability to try things on their own, to learn new things. And that has built a lot of rock stars.
I love it. Good stuff. And I'm gonna tell you, you teased that there were some things you can't talk about yet. So when you can talk about them, you let us know at Whole Foods Magazine, and we will help spread the word. But on that note, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.